So I've covered Georgia for more than 20 years, and I have racked my brain to try to come up with a time where there's been this many injuries in a preseason. Um, I don't know if I can come up with a lot of them. One year that comes to mind is 2004 when Craig Lumpkin had a torn ACL at the beginning of camp. And it was, a tough blow for Craig and that team. That was a team that had a lot of optimism coming into the season. And when Craig tore it, probably, I don't know if it was the first day. It was at the beginning of camp. Nobody knew who Danny Ware was. Nobody. And of course, Thomas Brown was injured soon thereafter and really didn't get going until later in the year. But Thomas was a heck of a running back. That year was definitely a time when Georgia had some injuries that were tough for them. But just in looking at the board, there's a lot of guys that catch the football that are banged up. I mean, in the last 6 months, all of these people I'm about to name have had, injuries of some sort. George Pickens, Kyrus Jackson, Don Blaylock, Marcus Roseme Jack Saint, Jermaine Burton, Smith. I don't think the other 4 younger receivers have had it. Eric Gilbert is out right now. John Fitzpatrick was hurt. Now it looks like Darnell Washington could be missing the Clemson game. You've got in the secondary, transfer Smith. He's hurt. It's a lot of guys. And it's not ideal when you're going into a game, particularly when you're going to need the passing game against Clemson. That's where Clemson is weak. If you look at them statistically, or you look at their most recent game against Ohio State, and Justin threw for about a zillion yards against them. So Georgia's not going to have all their weapons. Now, we knew they would not have George Pickens. We did not know that this would happen with Eric Gilbert. We did not know that Darnell Washington would be hurt. We did not know that Kyrus and Jermaine Burton would be coming back from injuries. I should keep looking at the board. I mean, you do hear that Burton is back at practice. Kyrus is back at practice. I think John Fitzpatrick will be okay. Darnell Washington is probably not going to play in this game, but we'll see. And then you've got Smith. He is probably not going to play in this game as a DB. But it's what it is, man. I mean, I don't know Clemson's injury situation, but I don't think it's as severe as Georgia's. And so then naturally you get into the discussion of, hey, what's causing this? And are they doing too much work in the offseason in strength conditioning? Are they doing the wrong type of work in strength and conditioning? And the people that I talk to, who I actually trust the most, they don't buy that. And they don't buy that. And they feel like this is football. It's what it is. Guys get hurt. It happens. And it's tricky, because if you're Kirby and you say, and I don't know if these happen with injuries or not. I mean, excuse me, with tackling or not. But Zamir, he's 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Here he is, getting ready to come back from an ACL. He's doing special teams work. Well, Zamir plays us special teams last year, all right, as the starting running back. He was on special teams, blocked the punt against Arkansas to get that game going. He tears his ACL in a special teams practice. This is why you recruit. I mean, it's not good. Don't get me wrong. And if Clemson were going through this, I mean, they did. Justin Ross was hurt last year. I mean, why was he hurt? Well, he was injured, for lack of a better term. He couldn't play. You don't think that they could have used his help against Ohio State and Notre Dame when they lost those games? Yeah, sure. I mean, Trevor Lawrence misses 2 games. They look human all of a sudden. Well, why wasn't Trevor out there? Medical. So it's going to happen. And it's not a fair assessment of the situation. At Georgia, you're depending on George Pickens. Well, George isn't there, and you just have to move on. And you've got guys like Todd Monken who are getting paid handsomely, and a program that is recruited at a very high level. A.D. Mitchell is no punk. I mean, he's been a person people have talked about, and you saw why at G-Day. Now, we've not seen anything since because everything's been locked down, but, Kyrus Jackson is really good. Jermaine Burton is really good. Brock Bowers, a lot of people are now whispering about, this guy could be pretty good. But, you got Darnell. Darnell got hurt. That's why you got Brock Bowers. You recruited Jamie Newman last year, who opted out. Then you got Stetson, Dwan Mathis. You're recruiting these guys, so eventually you will get the right person. So I do think it is a not ideal predicament to be in if you're Kirby and company. But you've got to practice the way that you practice. And physical practices during camp should be expected. Physical practices on a Tuesday or a Wednesday should be expected. It's just what it is. I mean, you've got to physically practice at some point during the week. But now as the season goes on, you're playing games once a week, stuff like that. No, you got to rattle it back a little bit. And we had extremely physical practices in basketball. They were too rough, and it hurt us over time. We practiced too hard, and that's not what's going on in Georgia. They're not. I mean, they are. You having an ACL? You can't defend against an ACL. Those are going to happen, and I'm not trying to defend Kirby or Ron Corson or Scott Sinclair. I mean, there's injuries happen in football, and it's unfortunate. DJ Shockley with an MCL before Georgia plays Florida. Just stuff. Florida State plays Georgia in a Sugar Bowl without a legitimate quarterback. You're going to have these sorts of situations. I think Florida State played another national championship game without a legit quarterback. I can't remember it specifically, but Tua Tagovailoa gets hurt a couple of years ago against Georgia. Here comes Jalen Hurts. So I do think next man up is completely overdone. I do, but there is some truth to it, and you do have a slew of what I call two-dot players at Georgia who are top 100 players. You've got at least 38 two-dot players, which means they were top 100 players at some point when they signed. That's a lot of top 100 players. Clemson's going to have a lot of two-dot players. I don't know if they'll have 38, but they're going to have a fair amount. So guys like Jordan Davis, who is a no-dot player, amazingly, Devontae Wyatt, Rochester, Trayvon Walker, Walthour, Carter, Stackhouse. That line's going to have to get it done. If you are Schaefer, Jamari, Warren Erickson, who is also hurt but will probably play, Tate Ratledge, Broderick Jones, Amarius Mims, Broderick Jones, 2-dot, Amarius, 2-dot, Tate Ratledge, 2-dot. I mean, Jamari, 2-dot. Top 100 players. And, it's not ideal, but you're at where you're at, and this is a challenge. And are you mentally tough enough to push through where you're at? Georgia may be in better shape than we realize with all of this stuff. And they may lose to Clemson, and you can't tell. But it's up to them to get the job done. And injuries are not an excuse. They are certainly an explanation. When you miss the guys they had out against Florida last year, that's tough. I mean, no Jordan Davis, no Richard LeCount, no George Pickens. I mean, that's a lot of people after a while. Now they're not going to have Eric. I guess, I don't know. I shouldn't even have said that. Eric Gilbert we don't know his status right now. Darnell Washington does not look like he's going to play. At least we don't know. He's day-to-day, according to Kirby. And then you've got George Pickens, who certainly is not going to play. Those are all not just two-dot players. They're high-level two-dot players. People can't match up with Eric Gilbert. And as far as George Pickens is concerned, that guy is as good a receiver as they've had since A.J. Green. He's a huge matchup problem. But they're going to have to get past it, get over it, and, life goes on. We'll see you over on the website, dogpost.com. Thanks for watching.